A video game is a game played on hardware built with electronic logic circuits that incorporates an element of interactivity and outputs the results of a player's actions to a display. Video games make up a $100 billion global industry. Nearly 2/3 of American homes have household members who play video games. In 1952, the first game to incorporate a monitor was a tic-tac-toe program called OXO by Alexander Douglas. 1958. One of the first early video games designed to entertain rather than to impress an audience was Tennis for Two by William Higginbotham. 1962. The very influential Space War was made by Steve Russell. It was the first video game capable of being playable on multiple computer installations. Space War was one of the first 10 video games to be housed at the Library of Congress, alongside Star Raiders, Zork, Tetris, SimCity, Super Mario Bros. 3, Civilization, Doom, Warcraft, and Sensible World of Soccer. (1972) Magnavox was licensed rights to a multiplayer, multi-program video game system that could be played on a television, created by Ralph Baer, known as the father of video games. This was sold to the public as the Odyssey and is widely considered to be the first ever video game console. The Odyssey featured 28 games, one of which being table tennis. 1972. Inspired by Magnavox's table tennis on the Odyssey, Atari released Pong as the first ever arcade game. Pong resembled the Odyssey's table tennis very closely. Because of this, they were sued, but received the generous settlement of escaping court by paying Magnavox $700,000 in cash with no royalties attached. It would have costed Atari $1.5 million to even defend themselves in court against Magnavox. Atari's Pong became easily even more successful than the original Odyssey, thanks to it originating in a time of cheaper and better technology. 1978. With help from Japanese video games, the arcade craze had officially begun with the introduction of Space Invaders. Space Invaders introduced many video game elements that would later become standard, such as regulating play by lives rather than the timer, gaining extra lives by accumulating points, background music, and even the tracking of high scores. 1980. Pac-Man ignited a new video game trend of using recognizable characters, a trend that definitely never went away. Arcade revenues in the US jumped from $308 million in 1978 to $4.9 billion in 1981. 1980. Nintendo introduced the Game & Watch line, spurring the still small, portable video game franchise. 1983. The North American video game industry experienced the infamous video game crash due to a surplus of poor quality third-party games such as E.T., commercial failure of many important Atari titles, and competition by computer gaming as home computers were beginning to emerge. 1983. Many companies producing home computers and video game consoles were left bankrupt. Due to the video game crash, Atari was forced to throw away over 700,000 unsold cartridges in a New Mexico landfill. This event became an urban legend known by most as the Atari video game burial. 1985. The industry did not begin to recover until the release of Nintendo's NES. The NES had improved 8-bit graphics, colors, sound, and gameplay compared to previous consoles. 1988. Japan continued its dominance of the home console industry, with Nintendo releasing crucial video game titles still around today, such as Super Mario Bros., The Legend of Zelda, and Metroid. 1989. Nintendo spurred the handheld video game franchise yet again with the release of the Game Boy, often packaged with Tetris. The Game Boy initiated Nintendo's line of handheld consoles, which would have a number of successors over the next 25 years. 1991. The first official console war began with Sega's release of the Sega Genesis, alongside the successful Sonic the Hedgehog, in competition to the Nintendo's Super NES. 1991. Capcom's release of Street Fighter popularized one-on-one fighting games, giving arcades popularity that had not been seen since the era of Pac-Man. The popularity of fighting games made people question the level of violence that should be seen in video games, and led to the creation of the Entertainment Software Rating Board, the ERSB, which is still used today to rate games based on content. 1994. The Sega Saturn and the PlayStation hit the shelves in Japan, and the PlayStation managed to quickly outsell all other home consoles with the exception of Nintendo's SNES. 1995. With the introduction of 3D graphics, the infamous Virtual Boy is released by Nintendo, featuring an attempt to provide depth perception. Due to a monochrome display and a lack of third-party support, the Virtual Boy is universally considered a failure. 1996. While Sony's PlayStation gains industry acceptance, Nintendo releases the Nintendo 64, featuring 3D graphics, showcased in games like Mario 64, which set the standard for 3D platformer games. 1997. Mobile phone gaming began with Nokia installing Snake into a line of mobile phones. These games were very limited by being monochrome and the very little amount of memory and processing power on phones, but they enjoyed success as time killers. Due to the lack of popularity between Sega's recent consoles, Sega exited the hardware market after the Sega Dreamcast, but has been developing software ever since. 2000. The PlayStation 2 was released, featuring compatibility with PlayStation games, DVD games with a capacity of up to 4.7 gigabytes, built-in 4-player connection, and even the ability to play DVD movies. The PlayStation 2, with 155 million sales, is the best-selling video game console of all time. 2001. Nintendo released the Nintendo GameCube, which suffered in many ways compared to the PS2, as it had no backwards compatibility, smaller disc size, little third-party support, and the unfavorable reputation of being a kids' console. 2001. Microsoft, known at the time for their Windows operating system, entered the console market with the Xbox. Thanks to games like Halo Combat Evolved, Microsoft managed to push Nintendo and its GameCube to third place in North American markets, a ranking that has not significantly budged since. 2001. Games such as RuneScape and World of Warcraft give rise to MMORPGs, massively multiplayer online role-playing games. These games were previously restricted by internet affordability, but have not left the market ever since affordable broadband internet connectivity was widespread. In 2004, Nintendo's reign of the handheld industry continued with the release of the Nintendo DS, which featured 2 screens and was seen as a success, but was pressured by Sony's release of the PlayStation Portable, which boosted superior graphics and power. 2006, the home console industry stepped forward with the release of Microsoft's Xbox 360 and Sony's PlayStation 3. Both of these home consoles featured high-definition graphics, hard drive-based storage for downloading games, and integrated networking. 2006, Nintendo releases the Wii, which had lower technical specifications than both the Xbox 360 and the PS3, but had a low price point of $200, and its novel motion control features were adored by audience, and showcased perfectly in games like Wii Sports and Wii Fit. The Wii became Nintendo's best-selling home console and defeated both the Xbox 360 and the PS3 in sales. 2008, casual PC games began to grow more popular, such as games like Bejeweled, Farmville, and The Sims. These video games were the first free-to-play with the option to buy in-game items, a trend to be followed by modern smartphones. 2011, Nintendo's Nintendo 3DS is released as the successor of the DS, featuring an on-screen 3D effect. Sony continues to pressure the handheld industry with the release of the PlayStation Vita, also in 2011. 2012, Nintendo releases the Wii U as a successor to the Wii, featuring a gamepad which provides a screen separate from a TV, allowing some games to be playable without looking at the TV. Due to competition from Sony and Microsoft, the Nintendo Wii U was seen as a universal commercial flop. 2013, the PS4 and Xbox One are both released as successors featuring improved power and graphics. 2017, Nintendo bounces back from the Wii U with the release of the Nintendo Switch in February, which has already reached over half the sales that the Wii U attained in 5 years. The Switch is the first console to allow playing video games on the go as a handheld, as well as easily connecting to the TV. To achieve this hybrid, the Switch uses versatile controllers called Joy-Cons.